Díadíh is Mishy Jean agus the Fuelche Rove a lig go dí cha na Glebe mína leban cundai dún na ná. Rugu Derrig Hill I Sassen in níjug séjug, agus fi clú agus céile hartar an down mar Allantor. Hannig Derrig Hill cuairt go dí a chara Henry McElhinney as Glenveagh in níjug caras in ní, agus hannig sé an seo. Hitch Derrig Hill in ré leis an cha, agus an timpelart a bhí hartai, agus go héria na díí a bhí gcónaí sa cantar. Hoi Derrig Hill arás go dí London, agus bhí sé gcónaí ag smítiú ar an cha seo. Hannig Derrig Hill arás in níjug chuige sa trí, agus cheannaí sé an cha ar son míle fonta, agus thosaí sé an báilehan a the in seo aniu. Thug Derrig Hill an cha, báilehan agus na Gurgeonnaí mar brontanas son stáit in níjug Ardmór agus cheannaí sé cha eile sa cheantar. For Derrig Hill buas sa blian 10,000 bhí sé 83 blian de ís. Tá an cha, an báilehan agus na Gurgeonnaí bhí smart oifig oibrithe na poblaí. Tá muid 4 buaithe ar son an brontanas seo a thug Derrig Hill doing.
Hi, I'm Adrian, and Jean and I are going to take you on a tour of Derrig Hill's former home, the Glebe House. We've come inside the Glebe House now into the dining room, and in this room we're going to look at Derrig Hill as a collector. And artists tend to make really interesting collectors because they tend not to do it properly. A proper collector will become an expert in a subject and collect perfect examples of a whole spectrum that informs that subject. Artists tend to just collect things that they like and that maybe informs them as painters. And that's what you see a lot in the collection here at the Glebe Gallery. So from a curatorial point of view, it's really difficult to come to terms with, and you kind of have to just sit back and enjoy it. And there's a lovely example of that here on the dining room table. The piece in the centre is a really classy piece of Waterford crystal, leaded crystal, and this is a real museum quality item. The candlesticks around it though are Victorian prism glass, and these are kind of trinkets, and you could still pick these up in car boot sales for next to nothing. And what's fascinating is that they're beside each other. They both are equally important as museum objects, but you almost never see them beside each other, and that's what's great fun about the whole collection here in the Glebe House. The table is perhaps the most magnificent thing in the room. It's an 18th century Italian table, and it's a great artist table because each of the inlays are of the muses. So for instance, you have music here and sculpture and even painting towards the front. The palette's beautiful with the different colours of paint inlaid. Again over here, you can see that mixture of things that don't belong together. We have the Mason's ironstone dinner set, some more Irish pieces with the Balik pottery, the teapot and the cheese dish, and the footbath. Again, you don't expect to see a footbath in a dining room, so that's good fun. And then some really beautiful Islamic pottery with these really impressive pieces here. There is a lot of Victoriana in the collection, and it's not surprising. Derrig Hill was born in 1916, so his parents were Victorian. It would have been very familiar to him. The 4 paintings here are a little unusual in our collection in that Derrig wouldn't have known this artist. They were painted by Edwin Landseer, and he was before Derrig's time, but he was an amazing painter. The subject matter we find a little difficult though. Landseer would have been hugely successful in his own time, but in the 1950s when Derrig Hill bought these, he would have been very unfashionable. If you think back, abstract expressionism was the big art form at the time, and that's where the money was. The pheasant here, I think, is probably the best example of a Landseer that we have. It's of a dying pheasant, and you can see that he captured the agony really well. The pain in the bird's eye and the blood dripping from its beak. And the Victorians were really comfortable with these sort of paintings in their dining rooms. For instance, they wouldn't have had the same notion of cruelty to animals that we have today. And you can sort of see that again in the stuffed hummingbirds above the fireplace. And this is almost what the Victorians would have regarded as conservation. So a lot of what they did is just so alien to us today that we find them very curious people. And then you have Victorians like William Morris, who made the curtains behind me. He was interested in the history of design and made everything by hand and used natural raw materials. So it feels very environmentally friendly to us. It feels very familiar. I don't think, like any Victorian, I don't think he was particularly concerned with the environment, but it just feels comfortable to us. And you can see that mixture again here, where there's more William de Morgan tiles. De Morgan was the ceramicist that William Morris used. But mixed in with it, you have some more of these Turkish Islamic tiles. So again, that mixture of cultures and periods of design, of history, that a proper collector, if you like, would be quite uncomfortable with. Artists love that sort of thing. They love that mixture. So we moved into the drawing room now, and we're going to look at Derek Hill as an artist. Professionally, he was a portrait painter, and he travelled a lot. He went to the people who he was painting, the people who commissioned him to paint them. But he also painted some people in Donegal, and towards the end of his life, people often came here to be painted in his studio, which is now the Glebe Gallery. Some of his very best portraits, though, are of local people, both from this area of Donegal and on Tory Island. And one of his very best portraits ever is of his gardener, Eddie Moore. And we'll just look at that next. Eddie Moore was Derek's gardener here for about 30 years, and he's responsible for the gardens that people can see when they come to visit us. As a painting though, as a portrait, it's really quite amazing. And I think the most impressive thing about it is how little paint Derek actually used to capture the essence of this man. If you look particularly at the face, there isn't a lot of paint used there at all. And I think it's an indication of what an amazing portrait painter Derek really was. Eddie's pictured here in the garden where he lived and worked, and you can see Gartan Lake behind him and the hills in the background. And I think that's the real reason that Derek stayed in Donegal, because of the beautiful landscape that we have here. Derek didn't have very far to go to find inspirational landscapes, and this was painted just on the edge of the garden here. It shows the Lennon River as it leaves Lough Gartan heading towards Ramelton, and you can see the way that the grass was cut and stooked in the picture. A lot of Derek's landscapes were very romantic. He was interested in that rural country lifestyle. That's what he saw in Donegal and what he loved about it, I think. Derek Hill was working in Italy when he first came to Donegal, and also when he bought the Glebe House. And he was the artistic director of the British School in Rome. So he would have met a lot of young, very talented British artists that were there on scholarships, and also a lot of Italians. Probably his biggest influence though was an American art historian called Bernard Berenson. You can see a photograph here of Berenson with his partner, Nicky Mariano. Berenson was a very important figure in art history. He was the world expert on Renaissance art at the time. But I think for Derek, his parents both died around about that time, and I think he looked to them as a mother and father figure. There's an amazing painting here by him of Nicky Mariano reading to Berenson when he was sick in bed shortly before his death.
Tá Ellen Horry sitje hart van ní mríle as costa dúna ná. Is Ellen galanta agus Ellen stayúla agus tá cangal mór leis an Ellen le níomh colm ciile. Hoi Derek Hill go dtí an Ellen an na níide chuigidí, agus hetting ré leis an suainnes agus an cínes an Ellen. Dine sé an scéal seo. Dúirt sé go raibh sé ag féinteáil híos cos farige agus bhí sé ag orc amá an tír mór. Bhí a lán daoine ag orc Derek Hill. A né tomul thosaí córa idir James Dixon agus Derek Hill. Agus bhí James Dixon an iascara agus bhí sé hart fa seart mó bliain de ís. Chur Derek Hill cistear James Dixon cé a héal tú mó féinting, agus dúirc James Dixon an impactor agus dúirc sé Derek Hill agus dúirte, well, tá ma deanú go ma Appleton níos fér a dhéanú mé héin. Well, ní rós le Derek Hill cé le ré. Thug sé féint agus pepper agus canvas do James Dixon. Agus seo cin don na factory a haring James Dixon. Hale, Derek Hill go James Dixon cin don na allantóirí is fér a tháinig sé a riamh. Bhí Derek Hill an inspiraid don na iascairí eile a bhí a chónaí san Ellen. Agus anis tá clú agus céil hart an domhan as na allantóirí ó Ellen Horry. Bhí Derek Hill ionta bradúil leis an cangal a bhí ige leis an Ellen, agus bhí meas mór ige don na naoine a bhí na chónaí in sin.
We've moved upstairs now into the master bedroom, and in a sense the transformation from private house to museum wasn't that dramatic for the rest of the house. Derek Hill often would have brought people on tours of the house, and certainly the local art department students would have come out for organised tours. So he used the house not in a completely different way from the way we use the house today. These rooms though were his private rooms, and some of the very best things in the collection are in these rooms, but they're harder to see. You have to work to find the good things in these rooms. You have to look quite hard because things clash. He loved them individually and he didn't mind that they didn't work very well together. And the most obvious thing about this room is the wallpaper. It's one of those wallpapers that you either love or hate. It's by an artist called John Aldridge, and it is a really interesting place in design history. It's a really well thought of wallpaper, but if you don't like it, you really don't like it. Derek Hill travelled a lot. He was a portrait painter, and typically he received commissions, which meant that he had to go to the people he was painting. One very famous one was when he went to India in 1966 to paint Radhakrishnan, who was the Indian president. He painted the official state portrait of him. So typically Derek would have packed up and gone there, stayed in the palace for whatever length of time it took to do the painting. It could have taken 2 or 3 weeks because the president maybe wasn't available to pose for Derek as often as would have been ideal. And I think a lot of portrait painters can find that quite frustrating. Derek loved it though. He loved travelling, and he loved the freedom of being able to look at the local bazaars and antique shops and buy little bits and pieces and bring them back here. So that's reflected in the entire collection. Almost everything is small, and he was able to carry it along with his suitcase and with his portable easel. Derek would have always had visitors to stay with him here in Donegal. He had 3 guest rooms in the house, but he also had accommodation up in the gallery. So he had room for people, and he loved people to come, and he loved to show them Donegal. They were keen to come because they'd heard his stories about how beautiful it was here. And another thing they were interested in was in getting some Donegal tweed to bring home to have suits made out of. So Derek would have brought them to buy tweed. And here's 2 of Derek's tweed suits. The first, the green one here, is hand-woven factory tweed, but the other one is cottage woven tweed. And this is really what people were looking for, because these were completely unique. This weaver would have woven a different tweed every time he sat down to weave, or she sat down to weave. So they made beautiful clothes. The collections here at the Glebe House and Gallery is primarily a collection of art, so a collection of pictures, of paintings. And it's a very personal collection. Artists just know each other, so they're able to swap things, and their collections tend to be very personal. And you can see that very clearly in this room in particular. The portrait above the bed is a self-portrait by the Austrian artist Oskar Kokoschka, and it's one of a series of lithographs that he made for his 80th birthday, and then he gave them to his friends as presents. And you can see the inscription here to Derek. But this little piece down here by Colin Middleton, I think, is even more personal. It's a picture of Sheephaven in Donegal, and Colin and his wife were frequent visitors here in Derek's time. But even before that, they actually spent their honeymoon here when it was a hotel, and following their deaths, they had their ashes scattered on the lake. So it sort of indicates how much this place means to people who love it. We've moved upstairs now, and we're in one of the guest bedrooms. This is called the rose bedroom because of the rose pattern on the Weemsware pottery. Derek had a lovely collection of Weemsware, and it's throughout the house, but all of the pieces in this room have the rose pattern on them. Also, the strips of wallpaper have roses, and just like all the other rooms in the house, there are little themes running through them, and they're often quite quirky. We've come to the last room on the tour, and this is the Morris room. It was a guest bedroom. It's probably the most magnificent looking room in the house. It's called the Morris room because there's so many things here by William Morris. The wallpaper, the carpet and the curtains are all by Morris. But Derek liked a lot of design and a lot of pattern, and he was very comfortable putting things together that didn't really belong together. So you have an American quilt and an Ottoman throw on the table. But they all look great together because they're big flower patterns. Why wouldn't they? Most of the paintings in this room have an Italian connection though. Some of them are by Italian artists that Derek would have met when he was working in Rome. But others are by young British students who went on to make a name for themselves. People like Joe Tilson here and John Bratby. Jean in Bed with Jaundice is probably our most popular picture. People respond really well to it. It's great fun. John Bratby was known as the kitchen sink painter because he was a social realist. He was interested in ordinary, everyday, working class life and was called the kitchen sink painter. And this is a great example because it even has a sink in it. You can just see the corner of the kitchen sink with the Omo packet. It's actually a picture of his wife, Jean, who was sick with jaundice. You can see her in bed, reading in bed, and the bowls of oranges are the treatment for jaundice. So probably quite miserable for her to lie there and be painted. But they're living in a bed sit, and it's a fascinating painting for people today to look at what life was like for a lot of people in the 1950s.
Díla go when you should salt agus tatnú a mahas an turisha. Slén agus Banart ó me héin agus Adrian. Gur maigah.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed seeing around the Glebe House and Gallery. Jean and I have certainly enjoyed showing you the house, and maybe when things get back to normal you'll be able to come and visit for yourself and see it in all its glory.